In this video, I'm going to talk about the number one mistake that women make when it comes to labour and how it can really negatively affect the birth process. And also, more importantly, why so many women make this one mistake. And I'm going to share with you something that I really don't think many women know. In fact, I had two babies before I learnt this. So I want to share this with you today, and also how to avoid this number one mistake. So what am I talking about? Well, really it just boils down to leaving your home too early and going to the hospital or the midwife unit too soon when your labour hasn't progressed enough, and how detrimental that can be to the actual birth process. So firstly, if you do leave your home too soon and you go into a hospital or midwife-led unit before you're in established labour, which just means before you've gone into that more vulnerable stage, the more established contractions are coming quite frequently and quite intense, it can really slow things down, and it can actually completely stop birth altogether as well. And the reason behind this is the hormonal balance, which I'm going to explain to you so you fully understand. If you do make your way into the birthplace, your hospital or midwife unit, and you're not in established labour, it's very likely that you will be told to go back home. And this can be so disheartening, to be told that you're not in established labour. And also it can be really confusing, because if your instincts have been really strong to get to your birthplace, you want that support around you, you want your birth team around you, then it can really be confusing and disconnect you from those instincts when you're told, no, actually you're not anywhere near ready and you need to go back home. So I know that most women find it really difficult to understand or know when's the right time to actually go into hospital. And we're told to count contractions, and we're told to, monitor those. And the truth is, that's not a foolproof way of knowing when you're in established labour. It just isn't. Every woman experiences contractions differently. I had 3 contractions in 10 minutes from the minute my labour started with my first baby. So I was really confused, because I was called my midwife and said, I'm having these 3 contractions every 10 minutes, but they're manageable and it's mild. And so I was at home for 10 hours before I called her again. So it's really unreliable to expect women to know when to leave. And also, I'm going to share with you something that most women do not know. And I had 2 babies before I learnt this through one of my trainings. But the early stage of labour has such an important purpose. We really do not give it the credit that it deserves, especially as it's not even noted on your medical notes. Your medical notes will only be from when you're deemed to be in established labour. So it's understandable that some women just spend this early labour period in a bit of limbo, not really understanding, just waiting for this more established labour, waiting to be told, yes, you're in real labour now, so you can come into the hospital. So I want to share this with you so that you understand that early labour is vitally important, and there is a really delicate balance of hormones going on during this time that you can really honour and respect. And not only that, your instincts will be really strong to get yourself to your birthplace, which is why so many women make this mistake of leaving their home and going to the hospital too soon. Now, to explain this, I want to take you back to our ancestors, to when we lived in caves and huts and villages. This early period, this early stage of labour, would have given the woman a signal that, labour is beginning, so now you need to find your way to your birth space. So, historically, women would have been taken to a birthing hut, to a birthing area with all the other women, away from the rest of the community. And this early stage of labour would have given them time to gather everything that they needed to get to that safe space, for them to then feel comfortable and safe enough to really let go and surrender into that more established labour. And nothing has changed. It's exactly the same for us. This early phase of labour is letting you know that your baby is coming, that the process has started. However, you need to find your safe space, you need to find your birthing place. But we have this dilemma now where we need to leave the comfort of our own home and go into a hospital or go into the midwife unit, which is one of the reasons why home birth is so absolutely incredible, because you don't have to have that concern. You're just in the safety and the privacy of your own home. But home birth isn't for everybody. So that will be your instincts. As soon as early labour has begun, you're going to be thinking about getting yourself to that birthing place where you're safe, where you've got your support team around you, where you can really just let birth unfold. And that is instinctual within every single woman. And that is why women make the mistake of feeling the need to get to wherever it is they're going. But there's a really delicate balance of hormones going on during this stage. So you've got oxytocin, which really governs birth. And for birth to progress into the later stages, oxytocin needs to take over. It needs to be in absolute abundance. Adrenaline, you may be aware of adrenaline. It's our fight or flight hormone. It's our survival system, and what it does is it tells the body if there's a threat or a fear. If the woman's really fearful, then it's telling the body that it's not safe to give birth, and it will slow things down. So if you cannot have adrenaline and oxytocin, you can't have more adrenaline in the system if you want oxytocin to flourish. But during this early stage, adrenaline really plays a vital part, because what it does is it keeps the mother alert. That rational part of the brain, it sort of sparks her into, right, I need to get myself to my safe space. I need to make my arrangements. So I need to get my childcare figured out. I need to make those phone calls. I need to let my midwife know. So the adrenaline is allowing that sort of process to happen, that rational part of the brain, and getting prepared for later stages of birth. But oxytocin is also really slowly starting to rise here as well. And it's getting those contractions moving, and it's letting the mother know, yes, you are going into labour. So once all the arrangements are made, and once the woman can get into her birthing space, then what can happen, what she's allowed to do is just really relax and start to surrender and just trust and allow birth to unfold. And then what will happen is the adrenaline will start to lower and oxytocin can rise, and that's where we get her moving into the more progressed stages of labour, more established labour. So that's what's going on hormonally. Now you can imagine if in this early stages, if the mother doesn't relax, so if she's made all her arrangements, she's made her phone call, she's told the midwife that labour has begun, and now she's sitting at home and she's really tense, and she's like, well, when do I go to the hospital? When should I leave? What should I do? The thinking part of the brain is constantly going, counting contractions, monitoring those, writing them down. This is all keeping her in the thinking part of the brain, which is keeping adrenaline up here. So as time progresses, the oxytocin isn't allowed to flourish because the adrenaline is still peaking here. So over time now she's thinking, well, it's been too long. I just want to get to my birth space, which is absolutely normal because that's your instincts. And now she really feels the need to go into hospital. So she will, bring herself in. She wants to see how far dilated she is. There's this sort of thirst for knowledge, like needing somebody to tell you that everything's okay and that everything's progressing nicely. But then you get to the hospital and you're told, I'm really sorry, but you're not in established labour and you need to go home. And what that does is now adrenaline is still really high and the mother is feeling really disheartened, really confused. She was so sure, her instincts were so strong to get to the hospital, but she's been told that, you're not in progress labour, so you need to go home. So this can really just cause so much doubt, so much confusion, so much disheartening. And then obviously adrenaline's still up here. Oxytocin can't take over because the thinking part of the brain is still up here. So this is kind of the cycle that can happen, and I'm going to tell you a really easy way to just avoid this at all costs. So it all just boils down to honouring your instincts and honouring this early phase of labour. Now this is a perfect time for you to make your arrangements, make your phone calls, as I said, get all those things done and out of the way. But it's also really beneficial to have a birth space at home that you have created. Even if you're leaving your home and you're going into a hospital or midwife unit, have a birth space at home. Surround yourself with things that you love. Surround yourself with anything that just instills a real sense of safety and privacy. if you've used things like affirmations or hypnobirthing tracks or relaxation music, or if you've got a soundtrack. I had a soundtrack for my first home birth that all the women in my family had picked a song for me that reminded them of me. And in that early stage of labour, it was so amazing to have these songs come on, and then I most of them I knew who'd picked them for me. But it's just lovely to have that space at home. You could have your comfortable blankets, pillows, whatever, fairy lights, candles. You can do whatever you want because you're at home. It doesn't matter. Just make it beautiful. Make it a space where you are honouring your instincts, but you're staying at home and you're letting those birth hormones flourish. Another thing that I really suggest, which is really difficult, I know, because we do think that this is the one way to monitor our progress, which is to count contractions. But I do recommend, if possible, to take your mind off of that. If you really do want somebody to keep track of it, to let your midwife know, then your partner can write them down for you and note them for you. So you could just give a signal, when the contractions starting, maybe put your hands up or give their hand a squeeze, and then when it's wearing off, you just let go, and then they can note that down for you. But keep yourself out of that thinking part of the brain as much as possible. Surrender into it. Just know that this is nature's way. You've made your arrangements. You're in your beautiful birth space at home. And now what you really want to do is just get that adrenaline coming down by switching off your overthinking part of the brain. Really relax the body, relax your mind, and oxytocin will flourish. And your contractions will slowly start to get more regular and more intense. And then once you're in that stage of labour, getting into that established stage of labour, when you leave your home, any disruption like a journey into hospital, or when you get to hospital and you have to speak to midwives or doctors or whoever it may be, because oxytocin has had a chance to really flourish and it's in abundance in your body now, even a slight peak in adrenaline is not going to take over. It's not going to completely overrun oxytocin. So it's not going to stop your contractions. It's not going to stall your contractions. There might be a little lull for a bit, but as soon as you get in your room and you make your surroundings nice again and you can relax back into it, then once you're in established labour, it's very, very difficult for things to reverse back down. But when you're in that early stage, that adrenaline, any peaks in adrenaline really does have a big effect on how things unfold, which is why it's quite common for birth to stall, stop, and also for dilation. You might be in established labour when you leave home, or entering into established labour when you leave home, but that journey could cause such a peak in adrenaline, but by the time you get there, you've gone from 5 centimeters back down to 3 centimeters. So the more established your labour is at home, once you get to that hospital, everything's going to be really moving fast and very unlikely to be disturbed by any peak in adrenaline. So just to summarise, the early stages of labour has a purpose. The purpose is for you to have time to be able to think rationally whilst you also understand that birth is beginning, to make your arrangements, to find yourself in your beautiful birth space where you can feel safe, secure and familiar, and then allow birth to progress, allow oxytocin to rise, let that adrenaline subside. It's done its job, it's allowed you to get to your birth space. And then try not to count contractions. You will know when contractions have changed. I absolutely promise you, you will know when your contractions are feeling that they've ramped up, and then that's the time when you make your journey into the hospital, because it will then be very unlikely that any little peak of adrenaline is going to disturb it, because you're already well established in labour. So I hope that helps. If you have any questions or anything, then please do comment below and I'll be happy to answer them. But yes, have a great day.